The twin suns of Khy'Lara shimmered through the crystalline towers of the palace, casting long ribbons of gold and violet light across the marble floors. The day had begun with celebration, the anniversary of peace between the Virellian Empire and the human coalition. For 20 years, the two had stood side by side, their alliance forged in fire and kept alive through trust. But trust, like light through crystal, could fracture easily. Among the royal guard that morning was Sergeant David Cole, one of only 3 humans ever assigned to protect the Virellian Queen, Starlight. The others, both humans like him, had long since retired. David had stayed, not out of duty, but out of a strange, growing loyalty he couldn't explain. The Virellians were tall, elegant beings, their pale amethyst skin faintly luminous, their movements graceful as dancers. Starlight, in particular, had always seemed untouchable. She spoke softly, her every gesture deliberate. But to David she wasn't just a monarch, she was good. Genuinely good. He'd seen rulers before. He'd guarded politicians who smiled in public and sneered in private. Starlight was different. She saw the broken, the weak, the lost, and she helped them. That was why, when the alarms began to wail through the crystalline halls, David's hand went to his pulse rifle before he even thought to move. "Palace breach, Western Gate," a voice shouted through the comms. The celebration turned instantly into chaos. Virellian guards scrambled to form defensive lines, while courtiers fled through hidden passages. David's training kicked in. "Queen's location." "Still in the Grand Hall," came the response. He sprinted. When he arrived, the scene was chaos wrapped in fire. The glasswork chandeliers had shattered, raining molten shards from the heat of explosions outside. Smoke coiled like snakes along the ceiling. And at the center, the Queen, surrounded by a half-circle of guards, her silver eyes glowing faintly in fear and defiance. "Sergeant Cole," she called, spotting him through the haze. "The Western line has fallen." "I know," David said, scanning the perimeter. His HUD flickered with motion signals. "How many left?" "7," replied Captain Voroten, the Queen's chief bodyguard. "Not enough," David muttered. The doors blew open before they could speak again. A wave of black-armored soldiers stormed in, Dravic mercenaries, their jagged insignia visible even through the smoke. Their rifles hissed plasma bolts that melted marble and flesh alike. The guards fired back, but panic rippled through them. For every mercenary that fell, 2 more entered. "Fall back," Voroten shouted. "We must get the Queen to the escape chamber." But as they retreated, one of the mercs lobbed a fragmentation pulse. It detonated near the stairwell. The shockwave shattered the guards' formation and sent the Queen sprawling. David grabbed her before she hit the ground. "I've got you." She looked up at him, dazed, blood trickling down her temple, violet against her pale skin. The guards regrouped, barely. "Only 4 now." "Captain," one of them shouted. "The path's gone." The ceiling collapsed. Voroten cursed in his native tongue. "Then we hold here." They did, for all of 60 seconds. The next wave came with heavy plasma support. Bolts screamed through the air like meteors. 2 guards went down instantly. Voroten tried to rally them, but a bolt caught him in the chest. He staggered back, his armor hissing. "Protect her!" He gasped and then fell. The last guard dropped his weapon. "We're finished," he said, voice trembling. "We can't." "Run if you want," David growled, slamming a fresh cell into his rifle. "But she's not dying here." The guard hesitated, then fled. David turned toward the Queen. "You can move." She nodded weakly. "There is an emergency passage beneath the dais." He knelt, fired a few covering shots, then ripped open the floor panel with his bare hands. Beneath it was a narrow tunnel lined with emergency lights. "Go," he said. "What about you?" "I'll hold them off." "David." He smiled, weary but fierce. "Humans don't run when the Queen's still standing." For a moment, her glowing eyes locked with his. Then she nodded and disappeared into the tunnel. He turned back to the smoke-filled hall. The mercenaries were regrouping, cautious now, wary of the lone human who hadn't retreated. "Come on, you bastards," David muttered. "Let's dance." The firefight that followed would be remembered in Virellian history as the Siege of Crystal Hall. David Cole, armed with nothing but a standard pulse rifle, 2 grenades, and an iron will, held the line against 40 mercenaries. He ducked behind shattered pillars, returned fire with precision bursts, and used the palace's architecture to funnel them into choke points. Every time they thought he'd fallen, he rose again, smoke clinging to his armor, face streaked with soot and blood. "Why isn't he dead yet?" one of the mercs shouted. "Because," David said over his comm, "you're used to fighting people who fear you." He tossed his last grenade. The explosion tore through the entryway, scattering bodies and molten shards. But his ammo was nearly gone. His armor's kinetic shielding had failed. He was breathing hard, lungs burning from smoke and exertion. And then he heard it, the sound that chilled him more than the enemy. The Queen's scream. He turned, saw her halfway down the tunnel, cornered by 2 mercenaries who had flanked through a side corridor. "No!" He sprinted, faster than his body should have allowed. He crashed into one of the mercs, slamming his rifle into its chest, then twisted and snapped the other's neck with a move drilled into him from years of combat. Both went down. He fell to his knees beside the Queen. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes wide with disbelief. "You came back." "I said I would." Behind them, more footsteps echoed. "No time." David grabbed a fallen merc's weapon, heavier but still operational, and took position at the tunnel entrance. "Stay behind me." They fought their way through the underground corridors. The mercs were relentless, but so was he. The Queen, though untrained, used her knowledge of the palace tunnels to guide them, sometimes barely avoiding collapse or traps meant to seal intruders inside. Finally, they reached the core vault, a small chamber built to withstand bombardment. The heavy door sealed shut behind them with a hiss. David dropped to the floor, exhausted. His armor was cracked, his arm bleeding. The Queen knelt beside him. "You are hurt." "I've had worse," he said with a weak grin. She stared at him, really stared like she was seeing him for the first time. "You stayed when all others fled." "Yeah. Guess I'm just built wrong." Her voice softened. "No. You are built right. The others forgot what loyalty meant. You did not." He laughed quietly. "I didn't do it for loyalty." "Then why?" He looked at her, eyes tired but warm. "Because you're worth protecting." The silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Then the lights flickered. The Queen's face hardened. "They're trying to breach the vault." David struggled to his feet. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" "Hours," she said. "Perhaps more." He sighed. "Then we hold for hours." The next minutes turned into an eternity. The walls shook as breaching charges detonated against the outer seals. David fortified the entrance with whatever he could find. Old crates, fallen plating, anything to create cover. The Queen, despite his protests, helped him move the heavier pieces with her telekinetic field. "You're supposed to be resting," he muttered. "I will rest when my protector does," she replied. Another explosion. The inner door dented inward. David leveled the heavy rifle. When they come through, stay low. The Queen placed a hand on his arm. David, should you fall, know this. I will never forget what one human did when an empire's guards fled. He looked back at her, and for the first time, there was no formality between them. And I'll never forget the Queen who stood beside me. The door blew inward. A dozen mercs charged in, and the last stand began. Later the palace was silent. Smoke drifted through broken halls. Reinforcements finally arrived, sweeping through the devastation. They found the core vault door blown open, and inside a scene that became legend. The Queen was alive, kneeling beside David Cole's still form. Around him lay 12 dead mercenaries. His rifle, melted and empty, rested across his knees. He had died on his feet, defending her until the very last breath. The Queen's tears shimmered like liquid silver as they fell upon his armor. When the rescue teams tried to move him, she stopped them. No, leave him. Let the galaxy see what loyalty looks like. Months later, a memorial was built on Khy'Lara, a towering crystal statue depicting a human soldier standing protectively before a Virellian Queen. Beneath it, inscribed in both languages, were the words, "When the guards ran, the humans stayed." Queen Serelith decreed that from that day forward, the alliance between their peoples would no longer be called the Pact of Necessity, but the Promise of Coal. It was not signed with ink, she said, but sealed with courage. And across 1,000 worlds, the story spread, of one human who stayed when all others fled, and of an alien queen who learned the meaning of humanity. Epilogue. Years later, in the quiet gardens of the rebuilt palace, a young Virellian princess walked beside her mother. "Mother," she asked, gazing up at the statue in the courtyard, "did the human really fight alone?" Queen Serelith smiled softly. "He did." "Why?" The Queen looked toward the twin suns setting over the horizon. "Because some hearts," she said, "do not need orders to do what is right." The princess thought about that for a long time. And far away on Earth, in the archives of the Human Coalition, the final log entry of Sergeant David Cole remained preserved. If you're reading this, then maybe they'll remember what humans are made of. We bleed. We break. But when someone needs us, we stay.